Compared to what? This is a question I rarely hear people ask, particularly when involved in, say, debating the merits of a free society versus a unfree society like what we live in today. And the compared to what, and particularly into political debates, it's never asked. So we'll say, for example, one criticism that's leveled at a free market is that people have incomplete information. And they don't know what's really out there, and so sellers can deceive the unsophisticated buyer, we'll say, and they'll take advantage, they'll hurt them, whatever you want to say. Maybe even we would exclude those sellers that actually do something bad, that actually hurt people, versus something like they just don't deliver what they promise, and they do it maybe on purpose. At any rate, that's the criticism against free markets. So we can't have that because there are people out there that want to deceive others. Well, in a market, if I buy a product that's advertised to work a certain way and I realize that it doesn't work, or it's really not as good as they said it was, the marketing sure made it look awesome, and yet in reality, it's just not that good, I can choose not to buy that product, right? I can say, no, I'm not going to buy it. And I can also, say, go online, I can downrate them on Yelp, I can if I bought it on eBay, I can downrate. Maybe if it was a bad seller that swindled me, I can give them a bad grade. The idea is that I can, as a consumer, not only withhold my money, but I can also tell others about the poor product. And I get immediate feedback. I can immediately stop doing business with somebody that I don't agree with that is doing a bad job. Compare that to political voting. Talk about not having incomplete information. What's the criticism I hear levied at democracy all the time? And always it's a sort of a victim blaming thing. Oh, well, the reason why democracy doesn't work is because the electorate is uninformed. So it's their fault, they're idiots, and they need to start informing themselves, right? Well, if that's the case, if people are so uninformed normally, right, that's not an argument against the free market. That's an argument against democracy. Because in democracy, if you vote in a political election and you're stuck with a horrible politician that makes all kinds of bad decisions, doing everything that you didn't want them to do, breaking his campaign promises, there is nothing you can do until the next election cycle. I mean, recalls rarely happen. Rarely, if ever. I mean, the last recall that I saw was Governor Gray Davis in California was recalled in a recall election. And that put Arnold Schwarzenegger in power. But the idea is that it rarely happens. I mean, look at, when's the last president? When do you remember the last president being actually impeached, right? Well, there hasn't been an actual impeached president since before I was born. And Richard Nixon stepped down because he was threatened with impeachment. And Bill Clinton managed to beat the impeachment. And what was his impeachment about? A freaking blowjob, okay? Who cares, right? People wanted Nixon impeached because he lied. George W. Bush made a far worse lie. Got us involved in a war that we should never have been involved with. Where was his impeachment? It never happened, right? So the idea is that you vote, you're stuck with these people, and you can't do anything about it until the next election cycle. And you hope that other people will get on board with you. And then you can't even trust that the votes are being tallied properly. You don't really even know. There's a lot of problems with the way votes are handled. And I mean, there was even some evidence of malfeasance in Florida during one of Bush's elections. I'm talking about GW. I think it was versus Gore. And the idea is that you can't even trust the election process. And on top of it, the popular vote doesn't mean anything for the office of the presidency anyway. It's the Electoral College. So you really have no idea if the system is even honest at all. There's a lot of reason to doubt. So in the market, I know that if I don't buy a product from a particular company, they won't be getting my money. And I know that the more people that boycott them, the more it's going to affect their bottom line. There's no lying about that. They can't say, hey, we made all this money, and they really didn't. They actually have to make the money. The money actually has to go into their hands. That's a vote that really does count, okay? But your vote, statistically, doesn't matter if you vote or not. In any election, whether you vote or not is not even statistically significant. So your vote has very little effect. On top of it, your vote has a stronger effect in the market. So again, compared to what? What is the alternative to a free market? government bureaucracies? Do these really do what people want them to do? And if you say, oh yes, we are the government and the government responds to the will of the people, do they? Particularly at the federal level, look what happened with the bailouts. The bank bailouts went through anyway, even though they were massively unpopular. Polls were taken that are widely regarded as being as accurate as you can hope for in a poll. 75% of Americans opposed the bank bailouts, and it didn't matter whether you were Republican or Democrat or conservative or liberal or whatever. People were largely opposed to it, and it went through anyway. So you can't really say that the government serves the interests of the people. So the market actually does a better job. So again, compared to what? If we're going to take away a free market, sure, people are imperfect. People make bad decisions all the time. But taking bad decisions and putting them into the government and backing them by force is a far worse idea. So remember, compared to what?